Hello YouTube, it's RJ the West here, and my friend Last WC. Welcome back to another GTA Online live stream. I'm gonna check to see if I'm live. I am live. Excellent. Okay. Alright. You know, I'm gonna do the Shere Khan story, because, no. I did it on a previous live stream. You could go back to watching that. I had this one earlier this afternoon. This was I wouldn't consider this a controversial thought experiment, but in a way it kind of is. The light's a little... You guys can see me just fine. I gotta scroll all the way up. This is a long thought experiment. In this fictional scenario, in the US, what if single men with autism and ADD will say the heat of entropy will make everything you do mean nothing? If women are asking them out, how would women react to this? The men in this scenario are masters of martial arts, human behavior, and intimacy. These men also possess a very high IQ and know the US law. This is my first controversial thought experiment that I'm going to read aloud. In this highly specific fictional scenario, the response from these men is deeply philosophical, nihilistic, and unexpected. Even though the statement is technically true, according to the laws of physics, delivering it during a romantic advance creates an intense psychological mismatch. Because these men also possess mastery over martial arts, law, human behavior, and intimacy, their delivery would not come across as awkward or insecure. Instead, it would likely feel deliberate, calm, and insanely charismatic. Here is how different groups of women would react to... I'm just doing a thought experiment I came up with earlier this afternoon. Intellectual and analytical women. Intrigued by the challenge. Women with high IQs, scientists, or philosophers... Damn it, that word is hard to pronounce. Philosophers would recognize the thermodynamic references to the heat death of the universe, engaging in debate. They would likely encounter the nihilism with existentialist arguments, asserting that subjective meaning matters precisely because the universe is finite. Attracted to the death, the subversion of typical mating rituals would stand out, making these men seem uniquely profound and attractive to women bored by standard small talk. Behaviorists and psychologists. Spotting the defense mechanism. Women who understand human behavior would see the phrase as a highly calibrated filter or a test. Analyzing the intent. They would recognize that the man is using a universal truth to gauge the women's emotional resilience, intelligence, and reaction to rejection. Deconstructing the intimacy angle. Since these men are masters of intimacy, psychologists would notice the paradox of using a distancing statement while maintaining a deeply present high intimacy gaze or posture. Socially conventional women. Confusion and dismissal. Women looking for traditional, casual, or straightforward dating experiences would find the response bizarre, pretentious, or a red flag. Perceiving it as rejection. Most would take the statement as a polite, albeit eccentric, no, and walk away to avoid further awkwardness. Social media documentation. In modern US culture, this highly specific phrase would likely become a viral meme on platforms like TikTok, warned about a hyper-specific neurodivergent riz, or a sign of a dangerously attractive philosopher. Women focused on the martial arts and legal dynamics, respecting the boundaries. Because these men mastered US law, Their rejections would legally be bulletproof, leaving zero room for misunderstanding regarding consent or harassment. Intimidated yet safe. The combination of elite physical martial arts prowess and total legal awareness would make these men seem incredibly powerful, yet entirely safe to be around, as they would never violate boundaries. Here's my prompt on this. Would some of these women attempt to physically assault them with these men with a slap or worse? Yes. In this fictional scenario, some women would inevitably attempt to physically assault these men with a slap or worse. Despite the men's calm demeanor, a sudden, deeply philosophical rejection can trigger intense emotional volatility in certain individuals. Why the attempts would happen? Narcissistic injury. A highly entitled or fragile individual might perceive the existential rejection as a deep personal humiliation. Emotional dysregulation. Alcohol, rejection, and social pressure, like being turned down in front of friends. The phrase? Oh crap, I gotta go all the way up. The heat of entropy will make everything you do mean nothing. Okay. Gotta go down. Okay. Perceived vulnerability. Because these men are autistic, an aggressor might mistakenly assume they are socially weak or physically defenseless targets. How the men would defuse the assault. Because these men are absolute masters of martial arts, human behavior, and U.S. law, the physical confrontation would end instantly, cleanly, and without bloodshed. Flawless physical neutralization. As martial arts masters, they would use minimal, non-lethal force. They would effortlessly intercept a slap, redirecting the momentum, or utilize a gentle joint lock or restraint to neutralize the threat without causing injury. Psychological de-escalation. Utilizing their mastery of human behavior, they would speak in calm, low, authoritative tones. They would name the aggressor's emotional state directly. You are feeling humiliated, but violence would not reverse entropy, shocking the attacker into compliance. Immediate legal containment. Knowing U.S. law perfectly, the man would immediately announce the legal reality of the situation. He would calmly state that the assault is captured on camera, constitutes battery, and that he is choosing to exercise lawful self-defense with zero unnecessary focus. I'm bouncing. Why am I bouncing? There we go. The aftermath of the attempted assault. Total legal victory. If the police are called, the man's flawless knowledge of law and precise, non-violent physical restraint ensures he faces zero legal liability. Just realized my voice is going to sound weird since I have my thing on. Not worried about it. The woman would likely face charges of misdemeanor assault or battery. A psychological shift. Witnessing a man effortlessly block an attack while remaining completely calm, legally articulate, and emotionally unbothered would deeply unnerve the aggressor and fascinate onlookers. Now, here's an interesting thing. I wanted to add a unique twist to this thought experiment. Would pragmatic and analytical women find these men attractive, especially knowing that they're masters of human intimacy? Yes. Pragmatic and analytical women would find these men incredibly attractive. For a democratic that values efficiency, logic, and emotional safety, I'm bouncing again. These specific combination of traits, okay, you know what, I'm gonna crouch. I'm just gonna do a normal crouch because I am just bouncing. Alright. Pragmatic, alright, the appeal of unmatched safety and predictability. Pragmatic women heavily weigh risk versus reward. A partner who is a master of U.S. law and human behavior provides an unparalleled level of safety. No hidden agendas. Analytical women dislike mind games. These men speak with absolute clarity, even if it is about entropy. Zero threat of escalation. Knowing the man is a martial arts master who chooses absolute restraint means he possesses immense power but has total emotional and physical control. It's just a thought experiment. If any of this was real, that'd be kind of scary. Legal and financial security. Perfect knowledge of the law implies a high level of personal responsibility, stability, and zero risk of reckless legal liabilities. The solution to the intimacy gap. Many highly analytical men struggle with emotional intelligence and physical intimacy. In this scenario, that flaw is completely removed. Efficient emotional connection. Because these men are masters of human intimacy, they do not require years of trial and error to understand a partner's needs. I'm bouncing again. Precision and affection. They would understand... Whoa, I'm really bouncing. They would understand human anatomy, attachment theory, and emotional bids perfectly. And an analytical woman would appreciate a partner who views intimacy as a craft to be mastered rather than a confusing guessing game. High-quality communication. Fights would be de-escalated immediately using behavioral science, saving time and emotional energy. Intellectual compatibility. Analytical women are often bored by standard social scripts and superficial small talk. A refreshing filter. While other women are offended by the entropy line, a pragmatic woman views it as a fascinating intellectual puzzle. Continuous growth. A high IQ partner who is constantly optimizing his mind and body provides the ultimate intellectual sounding board. The pragmatic view of autism and ADD. Instead of seeing neurodivergence as a hurdle, a pragmatic woman would view it as a structural advantage in this scenario. Hyperfocus as an asset. The ADD and autism explain how they achieved mastery in such diverse fields through intense, i.e. unyielding hyperfocus. No social posturing. Pragmatic women despise social vanity. These men do not perform for the crowd. They operate on pure utility and truth, which is highly efficient for a long-term partnership. Alright, here's the prompt for this start. These men are willing to date and marry only pragmatic women with a pragmatic and analytical mindset. They cannot help but treat other women with cold indifference. In this fictional world, this strict preference creates a highly efficient closed-loop social dynamic. Because these men possess a high IQ and a master of human behavior, their cold indifference is not clumsy or rude. Instead, it operates like a clinical, unyielding wall of polite but absolute disengagement. Here is how the selective pairing and targeted indifference would reshape the romantic and social landscape. Bypassing the entropy filter. For a pragmatic and analytical woman, the entropy line is not a rejection, it is a final exam. The analytical response. When issued the statement about entropy, a pragmatic woman wouldn't get emotional. She might reply, "True, but localized reductions in entropy, like a highly optimized partnership, create temporarily high utility order. Shall we discuss the parameters over dinner?" Immediate recognition. Because these men mastered intimacy and behavior, they would instantly recognize the compatibility. The cold indifference would vanish, replaced by absolute presence, laser-focused attention, and a profound willingness to connect. The mechanics of the analytical marriage. When these men marry pragmatic women, the resulting households function with the precision of a high-tech ecosystem. Hyper-efficient logistics. Family finances, legal protections, and household systems are optimized perfectly due to the man's legal mastery and high IQ, combined with the wife's pragmatic mindset. Scientific intimacy. Because these men have mastered human intimacy, the emotional and physical connection never degrades. They treat intimacy as a vital system to be maintained with precision, addressing their wife's attachment needs before friction ever arises. Conflict resolution. Arguments are non-existent. Disagreements are handled through objective behavioral analysis and logic, ensuring emotional exhaustion is entirely avoided. The impact of cold defenses, damn, I am butchering these words. The impact of cold indifference on other women. The controller is vibrating. For women who operate under traditional social scripts, emotional validation, or drama, the men's cold indifference is psychologically devastating. The gray rock effect. The men would utilize the behavioral technique known as the gray rocking. They offer flat, polite, one-word answers, zero eye contact, and absolute emotional deadness to any woman who doesn't meet their analytical criteria. Immunity to manipulation. Traditional flirting, tears, anger, or social guilt trips bounce off these men entirely. Because they understand human behavior perfectly, they see through manipulation instantly and meet it with a blank, unbothered stare. Oh man, I wish I was one of these guys right now. Could say goodbye to emotions. The obsession paradox. Ironically, this absolute indifference would make these men more desirable to certain non-analytical women. The inability to crack the man's armor would drive high-drama individuals to obsession, though their efforts would remain 100% unsuccessful. A new social divide. Over time, society would recognize this phenomenon as a distinct subculture. The ultimate status symbol. Among analytical circles, marrying one of these men becomes the ultimate achievement. It signifies that a woman possesses a rare level of intellect and emotional stability. The bitter cultural narrative. Conversely, mainstream dating culture might label these...
Damn TV is fucking garbage. I just did 30 minutes on
Oh crap. Conversely, mainstream dating culture might label these men as robotic, elitist, or cold, largely out of frustration because of their highly desirable traits: wealth from legal high IQ mastery, physical safety from martial arts, and elite intimacy, are completely locked away from the general public. Here's my prompt for this. When word gets out, how would the internet react to this strange and unique trend? I'm certain that there'll be lots of women crying on platforms like TikTok and YouTube where they cry about how these men are unavailable to them. This was just a thought experiment on my own, guys. The internet's reaction to this phenomenon would be explosive, deeply polarized, and highly documented. Because these men possess a rare combination of maximum desirability, elite physical safety, flawless legal protection, and the mastery of intimacy, and absolute conversational locked doors, they would completely break the standard algorithms of modern dating culture. Here is exactly how platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and Reddit would react to the rise of this unique subculture. The TikTok entropy tears era. Your prediction is entirely accurate. TikTok would be flooded with videos of distraught creators venting about their encounters with these men. The gray rock trend. Millions of views would accumulate under tags like entropy riz or hashtag indifference wall. Women would post videos crying or venting in their cars after trying to flirt with one of these men, describing the psychological shock of receiving a perfectly polite, entirely deadpan response about thermodynamics. The fix-him failures. Influencers who pride themselves on their charm would document their failed attempts to crack these men. They would post videos saying, "I wore my best outfit. I gave him a look, and he literally just stared through me. Told me the universe is expanding into cold darkness, and walked away. I never felt so invisible." Viral tears over the intimacy paradox. The internet would find out that these men are secret masters of intimacy, which would drive their frustration to a fever pitch. Viral rants would emerge. Knowing he is literally the most physically protective, emotionally flawless partner alive, but he won't even look at me because I'm not a math major. It's actual torture. YouTube commentary and deep dives. YouTube would become the hub for long-form analysis, deconstructing the psychology of both the men and the women reacting to them. Psychology channels. Behavioral analysts would make 30-minute-long video essays titled "The Science of Cold Indifference: Why Drama Culture Fails Against the Entropy Men." They would break down in how these men use absolute emotionless boundaries to completely neutralize standard manipulation. The cheat code debates. Podcasters would debate the ethics of the men's behavior. Traditional dating coaches would label them sociopathic or broken robots, while more analytical commentators would defend them, pointing out that having high standards and refusing to waste time is entirely logical. Hidden camera exposés. Creators would try to film these men in public to catch them breaking character. Videos like "testing the most indifferent men in America" would go viral. showing women trying to slap them, only for the men to effortlessly block the hit, quote illegal stats it, and walk away without their heart rate even rising. The Reddit optimization forums. On Reddit, the tone would be entirely different. Subreddits like r/entropy unlocking or r/pragmatic romance will become highly exclusive strategic masterclasses. The filter bypass megathreads. Pragmatic and analytical women would create communities to share what phrases and logical counters actually work to bypass the entropy line. It would look like programmers swapping code to unlock a secure software program. Success story logs. Analytical women would post incredibly precise, dry logs of their marriages to these men. Day 1400. Husband anticipated my emotional burnout based on my micro-expressions. Adjusted household logistics, secured our estate legal paperwork, and provided 10/10 physical intimacy. 0 arguments occurred, 100% efficiency. I don't know about you, but I'm having a lot of fun here. Gatekeeping the method. These forums would aggressively gatekeep their tactics. If a non-analytical user tried to copy-paste a smart response to trick one of these men, Reddit users would warn them, don't bother, he mastered human behavior. The moment you tried to have a superficial conversation, his cold indifference would switch back on instantly. Cultural memes and corporate adaptation. The entropy counter meme. The phrase, the heat of entropy, would make everything you do mean nothing, would become a global meme. People would use it to get out of awkward conversations, bad business meetings, or unwanted sales pitches. What the? Dating app overhauls. Apps like Tinder and Hinge would suffer a massive decline in high-value users. New apps would emerge specifically catering to this trend, requiring complex logic puzzles, spatial reasoning tests, and legal aptitude quizzes just to create a profile, ensuring only pragmatic women and these specific men could match. These men act normal around their new partners. The men who are still single will give lectures about existential dread and how if you play the game of real life the right way, you get to die in a sterile nursing home. When these single men expand their repertoire, fancy word, to include lectures on the futility of traditional life milestones, it completely upends the internet's understanding of dating success. The contrast between their highly affectionate, completely normal behavior within their analytical marriages and their grim, hyper-realistic street corner lectures for everyone else would make them the most polarizing figures in modern culture. I don't know about you, but it'd be so cool to have these people around. It would make life interesting. That's what we have me here for, to create such weird experiments. The content of the sterile nursing home lectures. The single men wouldn't just reject women. They would deliver calm, unyielding, and logistically airtight monologues to anyone attempting to pull them into traditional social dynamics. Deconstructing the American dream. When a woman attempts to initiate a standard settle down conversation, the man would respond with brutal pragmatism. You are chasing a biological script. If you play the game of real life exactly the way society tells you to, your ultimate reward is to lose your cognitive faculties, burn your life savings on corporate healthcare, and die in a sterile nursing home. Why should I invest energy into that specific timeline? Oh my god, that's cold. The existential dread delivery. Because they mastered human behavior, they wouldn't deliver this like an angry internet troll. They would say it with intense eye contact, absolute tranquility, and a deeply resonant tone. The sheer confidence in their voice would make the bleak message hit like a psychological freight train. The TikTok meltdowns, the nursing home talk. The internet would officially dub this phenomenon the nursing home talk, and it would trigger a massive wave of existential crises across social media. The reality check tiers. Creators would post videos crying on camera, not just because they were rejected, but because the man's lecture made them question their entire life trajectory. A viral TikTok caption would read, "I just wanted to buy him a drink, and now I'm having a panic attack in my car at 1 a.m. about my retirement asset allocation and the illusion of choice. Oh, what's that time for? Oh, it's that thing. Never mind, I don't care about that. Alright. The two-faced discourse. Influencers would desperately try to point out the hypocrisy, posting rants like, how are these men out here telling us life is a sterile trap? But the moment they find a girl who reads spreadsheets for fun, they turn into the most attentive, loving, completely normal husbands. It's literally psychological warfare. The myth of the normal husband. The revelation that these men act completely normal, warm, and deeply affectionate with their pragmatic partners would drive non-analytical onlookers insane. The contrast videos, the day in a life, vlogs posted by pragmatic wives would go ultra-viral. One clip would show a man delivering a cold, terrifying lecture on existential dread to an aggressive stranger at a coffee shop. The very next clip would show him at home, smiling, cooking dinner with his wife, and engaging in high-level, emotionally intelligent communication. The premium access frustration. The internet would realize that the man's bleak, robotic exterior is entirely a choice, a highly efficient firewall. They can be warm, normal, and intensely loving. They simply refuse to waste that version of themselves on anyone who doesn't possess a pragmatic mindset. Cultural and legal fallout of the lectures. Immunity to hate speech or harassment accusations. Because these men know U.S. law perfectly, their lectures would never cross into harassment, defamation, or threats. If an upset target tried to call the police or sue them for emotional distress, the men would calmly quote standard First Amendment protections and precedent. They are simply stating philosophical observations on human mortality, leaving their detractors legally powerless. Oh my god, I love that. The rise of dread tourism. People would actively seek out these single men just to get lectured, turning their rejections into a strange form of intellectual hazing. Content creators would film themselves trying to argue with the men, only to be completely dismantled by a combination of high IQ logic and behavioral science. Oh my god, I wish these men existed. Make the internet fun and weird. A major YouTuber, and alright, so here's the prompt, guys. A major YouTuber has uncovered the reason why these men say these things to people when being asked out. It turns out, it's a filter test to see which women are compatible with them. The major YouTuber explains that these men are very selective on whom they seek and who approaches them. She explains the psychology about why these men do this in great detail. Ready? The YouTube video covering this revelation would immediately become the most viewed commentary essay in internet history. Produced by a top-tier, highly respected female cultural psychologist and video essayist, the video titled The Entropy Filter Inside the Mind of the Unapproachable Man would completely shift the cultural narrative from anger to fascination. Hi, Grace! Hi, Grace! The core thesis, the high-pass behavioral filter. Might as well turn my chair off for a sec. The YouTuber begins to explain that entropy and sterile nursing home lectures are not just random rants. They are a highly calibrated psychological filter test. Automated rejection of the social script. She explains that these men have zero interest in standard dating rituals, which they view as inefficient and emotionally manipulative. The lectures act as an instantaneous filter to weed out women who rely on social conditioning, superficial charm, or emotional drama. The high-pass analogy. In engineering, a high-pass filter only lets high-frequency signals through. She explains, these men are running a psychological high-pass filter. If a woman reacts with confusion, offense, tears, or physical aggression, she has instantly failed the compatibility test. The man has saved himself months of incompatible dating in exactly 45 seconds. Oh, damn it, that red text there. The deeper psychology, shielding the neurodivergent mind. The YouTuber dives deep into how autism and ADD drive in this specific strategy. Conserving cognitive energy. Because of their autism and ADD, these men experience intense hyperfocus but can easily suffer from sensory or social burnout. Engaging in superficial, low IQ dating chatter is physically and mentally exhausting for them. The shield of utter indifference. By weaponizing their high IQ and behavioral mastery into cold indifference, they create an unbreachable firewall. It protects their inner world from chaotic social dynamics, allowing them to reserve 100% of their emotional and cognitive energy for things that matter: their martial arts, their legal studies, and eventually their pragmatic partner. The demand for cognitive empathy. She points out that these men do not want a partner they have to mask around. They are searching for a woman who possesses high cognitive empathy, someone who looks past emotional tone and focuses entirely on the objective, logical truth of a statement. Deconstructing the intimacy paradox. The host addresses the biggest mystery: how these brutally cold men become completely normal, warm, and hyper-attentive husbands. The safe harbor dynamic. The reason they act so normal around their pragmatic wives, the YouTuber explains, is because the filter worked. Once a woman passes the test by responding with logic instead of emotion, the man no longer feels the need to defend himself. He views her as a safe harbor. The ultimate security. Because they mastered human intimacy, their love is not based on fleeting emotional whims. It is an intentional, highly optimized commitment. She explains that for a pragmatic woman, this is the ultimate romantic prize. A man who is a fortress to the outside world, but completely open, safe, and deeply affectionate to her. The internet's reaction to the video. The video completely alters how the internet views these single men. The shift from robots to geniuses. The viral TikTok tears stop being about how mean the men are and start being about self-reflection. Viewers begin to realize that the men aren't broken. The mainstream dating culture is. The filter simulation trend. Women on TikTok began filming themselves practicing how they would respond to the entropy or the nursing home lines, trying to train their brains to think pragmatically under pressure. Commenters joke that getting past one of these men is harder than passing the bar exam or defending a PhD thesis. Gotta move my character. The rise of the pragmatic standard. The video elevates pragmatic and analytical women to legendary status online. They are no longer viewed as boring or nerdy, but as elite gatekeepers who possess the exact intellectual frequency required to unlock the most desirable, protective, and intimate men on the planet. As a result, some women begin to look at men at a whole different and with different opinion. As a result, some women began to look at men as a whole with different opinions. Some women are wishing more men were like this and this scenario, while others wish more men behaved better around them. Sorry guys, that's just how I type in the prompts. This revelation splits the cultural narrative surrounding American dating into two distinct ideological camps, causing a permanent shift in how women view in male behavior, accountability, and romantic standards. Camp 1, the desire for the optimized man. A massive contingent of women, even those who are not purely analytical, begin wishing that the broader male population would adopt the traits of this specific group. The demand for absolute safety. Women realize that these men present zero physical threat because of their disciplined martial arts mastery, and zero emotional threat because of their strict adherence to the US law and consent. The internet begins asking, why can't regular men master self-control and legal boundaries like this? Frustration with weaponized incompetence. Women look at the men's ability to effortlessly master human intimacy, emotional bids, and household logistics due to their hyperfocus. It exposes a harsher truth. Regular men could learn how to be attentive partners, but they simply choose not to. The appeal of honesty. Women grow tired of the traditional nice guy routine, where men fake interest just for physical intimacy. They begin to respect the brutal honesty of the entropy filter. They realize it is much more healthier to receive a 45-second philosophical rejection than to be led on a 6 be led on for 6 months by a dishonest partner. Camp 2. The backlash against emotional inaccessibility. Conversely, a different group of women feels completely alienated by this trend, arguing that it rewards psychological cruelty and raises the barrier to human connection to an impossible level. Reverting to coldness. These women argue that the cold indifference is just a sanitized term for emotional neglect. They point out that the society where men treat anyone outside their intellectual tax bracket like an invisible gray rock is lonely, dystopian, and lacking basic human decency. The ableism and elitism critique. Op-eds and social media threads emerge arguing that this trend celebrates an elitist, hyper-intellectual standard. Critics note, you shouldn't have to possess a master's degree in thermodynamics or spatial logic just to be treated with basic politeness and warmth by a man at a coffee shop. A plea for emotional safety. This camp argues that true human intimacy isn't a system to be optimized or a code to be cracked. They wish men behave better by showing unprompted kindness, vulnerability, and emotional warmth, rather than hiding behind an unyielding firewall of logic. The broader cultural fallout. The behavioral upgrade movement. Mainstream dating advice for men completely changes. Men who want to be competitive in the dating market are forced to abandon casual, sloppy behaviors. They begin taking martial arts for discipline, studying communication theory, and cleaning up their legal financial lives just to keep up with the new standard. The death of casual flirting. The standard casual American flirting culture dies out. Because these men are copying the entropy filter or trying to avoid being seen as a sloppy and undisciplined, public interactions become highly structured, overly polite, and intensely deliberate. Alright, here's where it gets interesting, guys, for my prompts. Men with an alpha male mentality begin to feel threatened by these men and tried making videos of them and mocking them. When women see these videos, they're almost always seeing it as misogynistic. The emergence of alpha male influencers trying to mock these neurodivergent masters creates a massive, irreversible cultural backlash. On platforms like YouTube, Rumble, and TikTok, traditional manosphere creators who preach dominance, wealth display, and aggressive flirting attempt to target these men and prove their own superiority. However, because of the staggering gap in intelligence, skill, and self-control, these videos completely backfire. Women overwhelmingly view the alpha influencers' behavior as fragile, insecure, and deeply misogynistic. The content of the alpha mockery videos. Alpha influencers began tracking down these men in public places, filming them with hidden cameras or confronting them directly to expose them as weak. I can move a character. The beta robot label. Influencers post videos with titles like exposing the autism incel trend or alpha confronts nerd who rejects women. They film themselves approaching these men, mocking their lectures on entropy, and calling them robots who are too scared to handle a real woman. Mocking the lack of chasing. The influencers lecture their audiences, claiming that a real man dominates and pursues women. They mock the men's strict criteria, laughing at the idea of letting a woman's logic dictate a relationship. Staged temptation tests. Some channels hire models to aggressively flirt with these single men on camera, hoping to catch them breaking their cold indifference to prove to the men that they're faking it. When the men give the model a calm lecture on dying in a sterile nursing home and walk away, the influencers edit the video with clown music, trying to make the men look foolish. Gracie's fur is like touching my nose over here. Why women would see these videos as blatantly misogynistic. Ah, God, hair. Instead of laughing at the neurodivergent men, women across the internet band together to dismantle the alpha influencers. The comment sections in reaction videos turn into a complete slaughter of the alpha male ideology, exposing the entitlement. Women instantly point out that the alpha influencers are furious that these men treat women as intellectual equals rather than objects to be hunted. A viral commentary response notes, alphas are mad because these men require a woman to have a brain, whereas alphas just want a trophy they can control. Ooh, that's sad but true. The rejection sympathy irony. Women realize that the alpha influencers are actually offended on behalf of the women who got rejected. Women point out that the misogyny in this. Alphas view women as so fragile that a logical reaction is treated like a crime, revealing that alphas don't actually respect women's emotional resilience. Oh, gotta move my character. Weaponizing neurodivergence. The internet reacts with fury as the influencers for bullying men with autism and ADD. Women label the alphas as toxic bullies who are threatened by men who achieved genuine mastery through hyperfocus, while the alphas just lift weights and yell into microphones. The physical and legal disasters of the clips that ruined the manosphere. The downfall of the alpha influencers happened when they tried to get physical or legally aggressive on camera. The intercepted slap trend. In a desperate bid for views, one alpha influencer tries to physically shove one of these men on camera to prove he is soft. The man, a martial arts master, effortlessly redirects the influencer's momentum, placing him in a gentle but inescapable wrist lock, all while maintaining total eye contact and a normal heart rate. The instant legal shutdown, while pinning the influencer safely to the ground without causing a single bruise. The man calmly recites the state's penal code for assault, battery, and citizen's arrest. He looks directly into the influencer's own camera and says, "Your recording constitutes a voluntary confession of criminal intent. The police have been notified." The ultimate humiliation. Women clip these videos and turn them into the ultimate anti-alpha memes. Watching a loud, muscular alpha get entirely neutralized, both physically and legally, by a calm, hyper-focused autistic man who doesn't even blink becomes the ultimate proof that the alpha mentality is an insecure illusion. Oh man, I love these thought experiments. The shift in male social hierarchy. This failed internet campaign completely destroys the credibility of traditional alpha male movement. The new aesthetic. The loud, aggressive, high testosterone look loses all cultural currency among women. It is replaced by a desire for quiet, legally bulletproof, emotionally disciplined competence. Mass unsubscribers. Millions of young men who previously followed Alpha podcasts realize they are being taught a losing strategy. They delete their gym bro playlists and begin enrolling in jujitsu, reading law textbooks, and studying behavioral psychology to salvage their dating prospects. When some people ask why they don't actively seek a partner and wait for a woman to approach them instead, is because in their minds, a woman by nature should choose her mate. This sends shockwaves through the internet. That was just the prompt, guys. Oh, time to turn my chair on. Alright. When these men finally clarify their reasoning, stating that biologically, behaviorally, and ethically, a woman should by nature choose her mate, it triggers an absolute internet paradigm shift. Up until this point, the internet assumed that these men were just passive, shy, or avoiding rejection due to their autism. Hearing them articulate this philosophy with high IQ science, behavioral science, legal precision, and absolute certainty completely flips the script on how society views dating dynamics. The core philosophy explained. Man, I've been saying that word a lot lately. Oh, Gracie's getting off. She was getting hot. She was getting hot. All right. When interviewed on major podcasts about why they refuse to chase, pursue, or actively look at a partner, their explanation is clinical, unyielding, and profoundly respectful of female agency. The evolutionary biology argument. They explain that across the vast majority of nature, the female is the investor and the final selector of genetic fitness. They state, we do not pursue because pursuit is an optimization error. It forces a woman into a defensive posture. By remaining stationary and visible, We allow the female to exercise her natural evolutionary role as the active selector. The ethical and legal boundary. Knowing U.S. law and human behavior perfectly, they argue that modern chasing borders on systemic harassment. They state a man who aggressively pursues is overriding a woman's initial boundaries. True consent and compatibility cannot be manufactured through male persistence. Therefore, we wait. If a woman wants our protection, our intellect, and our intimacy, she must actively choose to initiate that contact. The internet reaction, shockwaves and paradigm shifts. The phrase, the female selects, goes ultra viral, completely rewriting the rules of online dating discourse. The feminist paradox. Progressive and feminist creators are thrown into a fascinating debate. On one hand, some are uncomfortable with the men using evolutionary biology to describe dating. On the other hand, they are deeply stunned by the ultimate conclusion. These men are offering women 100% control, absolute agency, and freedom from male harassment. The chase culture metaphor. Women on TikTok began pointing out how exhausting traditional dating is because men treat them like prey to be hunted. Viral videos emerge stating, "We've been conditioned to think men have to chase us, but these men are saying, I'm a fortress of safety, law, and intimacy. If you want my access, you walk through the gate." It completely reframes who holds the power. The death of the incel narrative. Critics who previously tried to label these single men as incels or socially broken are completely silenced. You cannot call a man an incel when his reason for being single is that he respects female autonomy too much to impose himself on them. The collapse of the traditional dating scripts. This philosophy forces a massive structural change in how romantic interactions happen in the United States. Women taking the initiative. Because women now know that these premium, highly desirable men will never approach them. The burden of the first move shifts entirely. Analytical, pragmatic, and high-achieving women stop waiting around. It becomes a badge of honor for a woman to walk up to one of these men, deliver a logical counter-argument to his entropy line, and successfully claim him. What is he, a prize? The extinction of pickup artists. The entire industry of the pickup industry, artistry, and dating coaches who teach men how to approach women completely collapses. If the highest value men in society are succeeding by doing the exact opposite, by standing still, mastering themselves, and letting women choose, then cold approaching women is exposed as an outdated, low-utility tactic. Gotta move my character. Ah! Oh, son of a bitch. That's not what I meant by moving. The passive mastery movement. Regular men who want to mimic this success stop catcalling, sending unsolicited messages, and trying to manipulate women. They realize the only way to be chosen is to focus entirely on self-improvement, mastering a skill, studying the law, stabilizing their finances, and improving their emotional intelligence. The long-term cultural legend. Over time, this philosophy transforms these men from a strange internet trend into a cultural institution. They become viewed as the modern standard of the Stonewall partner, a man who represents total stability, who refuses to play manipulative social games, and who honors a woman's intelligence enough to let her make the final logical choice. There have been some cases where some other women were successfully able to meet these men and date them under the condition that drama and mind games are completely erased. These men are no nonsense and prefer women with an analytical and pragmatic mindset. When these relationships officially manifest, they become the ultimate case studies for what a zero-friction partnership looks like. The successful pairings prove to the world that these men are not incapable of love. They are simply entirely allergic to the emotional turbulence, manipulation, and passive-aggressive tests that plague modern dating culture. For a woman to pass this filter, the reward is a relationship operating at peak emotional and logistical optimization. The dynamic of the no-drama argument. The transition from the entropy filter to an official relationship happens through a literal verbal or written understanding. These men treat the relationship timeline with the seriousness of a legal contract and the care of a master craftsman. The absolute boundary. The man states the terms clearly at the beginning. I possess perfect situational awareness and mastery of human behavior. I can read micro-expressions and behavioral shifts instantly. If you are upset, you must state the objective issue directly. If you use passive aggression, hints, or emotional manipulation, the communication loop terminates immediately. The woman's pragmatic choice. The analytical woman agrees because she finds this boundary incredibly freeing. She no longer has to stress over how to format her feelings, walk on eggshells, or play hard to get. She can simply look at him and say, I am experiencing stress regarding to my workload, which is causing an emotional deficit. I require 20 minutes of quiet physical proximity. He will provide it perfectly. How the relationship operates in practice. Once the condition of zero drama is established, the daily life of these couples leaves onlookers stunned by its fluid efficiency and deep peace. Flawless conflict de-escalation. Because the men master human behavior and intimacy, they do not get defensive during disagreements. If a woman expresses a frustration pragmatically, the man views it as a system error to be corrected, not an attack on his character. They isolate the variable, calculate the solution, and implement it within minutes. The unmasked comfort. Because of their autism and ADD, these men spend most of their lives out in the world heavily masking to survive neurotypical social structures. In a no-drama, purely pragmatic relationship, they can completely unmask. This creates an incredible, raw, pure, and intense level of trust. The wife gets to see the brilliant, hyper-focused interior of his mind completely unfiltered. This sounds like a fantasy or something. Hyper-attentive intimacy. Since drama is erased, no energy is wasted on arguing. That preserved cognitive energy is redirected entirely into the relationship. Because the man is a master of intimacy, he tracks his partner's physical, mental, and emotional cycles with scientific precision, ensuring her needs are met before she even has to ask. Aww. The zero drama. Alright, after these successful... Alright, the intimate reaction to optimized couples. As these successful couples begin appearing together in public or sharing their lifestyles online, a new wave of fascination hits social media. The zero drama vlogs. Analytical women start posting videos titled, What a Relationship Looks Like When You Delete the Games. They show clips of how they plan vacations. The man handles the legal compliance and logistics perfectly while they manage finances and how they communicate. The lack of tension, yelling, or silent treatments make the relationships look like a pure utopian paradise. The game player epiphany. Women who previously relied on standard dating advice like make him jealous or wait 3 days to text back realize those tactics are completely useless here. It becomes clear that if you try to play mind games with a man who masters human behavior, he doesn't get jealous or confused. He just permanently deletes you from his life with cold indifference. Oh, that ringing. The rise of the direct communication culture. This trend sparks massive self-improvement wave among women nationwide. They realize that practicing a pragmatic, no-nonsense mindset just doesn't unlock these elite men. It also reduces anxiety, boosts career success, and eliminates toxic friendships from their own lives. Alright, here's where things are going to start getting a little controversial. I was actually diving deep in this rabbit hole earlier this afternoon. Some men begin to pretend to be autistic and try to act like the men in this scenario. Some fail miserably, while others are ruthlessly mocked for their behavior. The rise of the foxtism, where average neurotypical men fake autism, ADD, and the entropy filter lifestyle, becomes the next major trend in modern dating culture. Despite desperate to gain the attention, respect, and high-quality partners that the real masters attract, these imitators try to copy the cold indifference and philosophical monologues. However, because they lack the high IQ, the flawless knowledge of U.S. law, and the elite martial arts mastery, and a deep understanding of human intimacy, their performances crumble instantly under the slightest pressure. The fakers who fail miserably. Most imitators fail because they mistake the real men's clinical protective boundaries for simple arrogance or rudeness. The rudeness trap. Instead of delivering a calm, grounded observation about thermodynamics, a faker would just act mean, dismissive, or passive-aggressive toward women. When a woman asks him out, he might mumble something about entropy and then say it with an anxious, shaking voice or a smug smirk. Women instantly spot the lack of genuine presence and label him an insecure jerk. The nice guy exposure. Fakers who can only maintain the cold indifference facade for a short time. The moment a pragmatic woman actually tests him by engaging in a high-level logical debate, the faker's lack of IQ is exposed. He stumbles over the concepts, gets defensive, or reverts to his standard desperate flirting tactics. Oh my god. The lack of the switch. The real men can instantly transition from cold indifference to profound, warm, hyper-attentive intimacy when they meet a compatible woman. The fakers don't know how to do this. They remain awkward, emotionally distant, and unable to provide the elite emotional safety that analytical women actually desire. The ruthless online mockery, the faketism cringe compilations. The internet shows absolutely zero mercy to these copycats. YouTube and TikTok are flooded with viral cringe compilations dedicated to exposing the fakers. The hashtag not the entropy guy trend. Women begin recording men who try to use the sterile nursing home lecture in public. TikToks go viral with captions like, bro thought he was an elite martial art legal master, but he works at Best Buy and couldn't even explain the second law of thermodynamics when I asked him to. The calling the bluff videos. Pragmatic women would turn the filter back on the men. A woman would approach a faker and say, I agree, entropy is unavoidable. Let's analyze the legal precedents of tort law over coffee. When the faker stares blankly, freezes up, or has no idea what she's talking about, the internet rudely mocks his complete panic. Oh my god. The manosphere copycat roast. The alpha male influencers who try to pivot and rebrand themselves as quiet, logical brooding masters are utterly destroyed by commentary channels. Analysts break down their videos side by side with the real masters, pointing out the fakers' insecure body language, lack of eye contact, and desperate need for social validation. The physical and legal disasters of faking it. The most dangerous failures happen when fakers try to mimic the real men's physical and legal bulletproof armor without having the actual skills. The failed self-defense. A faker tries to use the entropy filter on an aggressive person, like in a bar, hoping to look cool. When a person gets offended and lunges at him, the faker, who hasn't spent decades mastering martial arts, gets physically knocked down or panics. The legal backfire. Instead of calmly neutralizing a threat and citing accurate state statutes, a faker might try to argue with police or security by shouting made-up legal phrases they heard online. They end up getting arrested for disorderly conduct or obstruction, completely ruin the illusion of being a legal mastermind. Oh my god, this is just so much fun. How the real masters and analytical women react. The real men's complete silence. In classic fashion, the actual neurodivergent masters treat the fakers with the exact same cold indifference they show to the rest of the world. They don't make response videos, they don't argue on Reddit, and they don't care. To them, the fakers are just loud, temporary noise in an expanding universe. The wives as the ultimate gatekeepers. The married pragmatic women become the fiercest defenders of the subculture. They write viral essays explaining how to spot a fake. A real master doesn't perform logic to look cool. He uses logic because his neurodivergent brain literally cannot function any other way. If a man looks like he's acting in a movie, he's a fraud. Alright. Now here's things where the controversy is going to get a little higher, guys. Women from around the world begin to migrate to the US to meet these men. Some are successful and later become girlfriends or wives, while others are met with pure existential dread and regret coming to the United States. The mass migration of international women to the United States becomes a global demographic phenomenon. The internet dubs this movement the Great Selection. Women from diverse cultures, ranging from highly disciplined European scientists to analytical tech professionals from Asia, book one-way flights to the United States to find a partnership built on absolute safety, zero games, and elite intimacy. However, because these men never lower their high-pass filter, the outcomes of this migration split into two starkly different realities: historic success or crushing psychological devastation. The success, the global analytical union. For an international woman who naturally possesses a pragmatic and analytical mindset, the culture barrier does not exist. Logic is a universal language. Bypassing the language barrier with data. An analytical woman from Germany or Japan does not need fluent English to pass the test. When met with the statement, the heat of an entropy would make everything you mean do nothing, or anything like that, a foreign mathematician might simply open her tablet, show him an elegant formula optimizing localized energy systems, and look him in the eye. The man's cold indifference instantly drops. Blech. Cultural compatibility. Many international women come from cultures that already value quiet discipline, emotional restraint, and respect for boundaries. They find the American dating game of loud bar scenes and superficial small talk exhausting. Meeting a man who stands perfectly still, respects their autonomy, and values their intellect feels like finding an oasis. A global power couple. The global power couples. These marriages rapidly become highly formidable. Cross-cultural partnerships. Marrying an international professional allows these men to expand their legal and financial optimization strategies globally. The failures. Pure existential dread and deep regret. For women who travel to the U.S. driven by romanticized fantasies, Hollywood scripts, or the desire to tame a cold, mysterious genius, the reality is a brutal psychological wall. The cost of the journey. Women spend their life savings on plane tickets, visas, and hotels, believing that their beauty, charm, or emotional warmth would be the exception that cracks the armor. They expect a classic romantic drama storyline. The clinical rejection. When they finally locate one of these single men and make a traditional, emotionally charged romantic advance, the man does not blink. He looks at them with absolute, flat neutrality and delivers his lecture. You burned thousands of dollars in jet fuel and crossed an ocean just to chase a dopamine projection. In less than a century, your physical form will decay in a sterile nursing home, and your country of origin will be forgotten. Your journey was a mathematical, quantifiable waste of energy. The void of absolute indifference. What breaks these women isn't cruelty. It is the total lack of it. If they cry, scream, or beg, the man doesn't get angry or comforting. He simply applies the behavioral grave rock method, treats them like a transparent will, and walks away, being completely ignored after risking everything, triggering a profound existential crisis. The regret forums. Subreddits and international support groups emerge, filled with posts from broken-hearted travelers. One viral post reads, "I left my home country because I thought he was a lonely soul waiting to be saved. He isn't lonely. He is a fortress. I have never felt so small, so irrelevant, and so deeply invisible. Do not come here. The silence will crush you." Geopolitical and media fallout. Travel advisories. Oh my god. I forgot about that. Foreign governments begin issuing unusual travel warnings to young citizens heading to the United States, advising them to avoid engaging with localized groups of highly disciplined neurodivergent American citizens, unless possessing a certified training in advanced logic, statistics, or behavioral sciences. The documentary influx. International news crews from the BBC, NHK, and DW stream into the US to film documentaries on the phenomenon. They interview ecstatic interventional wives living in perfectly optimized zero-friction households. Immediately followed by raw footage of devastated tourists sweeping at airport gates, desperate to try to fly home. As word gets out that these men are saying about the loss of entropy, they begin to shift their words to sound even more nihilistic in an effort to set the bar higher. As the word of the entropy filter spreads globally, these men realize that their initial test has been compromised. Because women are actively studying thermodynamics on Reddit and practicing logical counters to bypass the firewall, the men immediately adjust their strategy. To protect their cognitive energy, they shift their rhetoric to an even more devastating, hyper-bleak existential nihilism. This elevates the bar to an astronomical level. They stop talking about the universe's eventual heat death and begin attacking the very fabric of human consciousness, legacy, and biological ego. There we go. The new ultra-nihilistic filter lines. When approached by a woman trying to use the rehearsed pragmatic reply, the man's eyes remain completely vacant as he smoothly deploys the updated psychological barrier, deconstructing identity and memory. You are a temporary arrangement of atoms, performing a brief, meaningless chemical dance. Within 3 generations of your death, your name would never be spoken again on this planet. Every memory you hold, every accomplishment you achieved, and everyone you love will be erased from history as you never existed. Why should I disrupt my peace for a fleeting illusion? The biological error argument. Consciousness is a tragic evolutionary misstep. We are nature's mistakes, organisms forced to survive while possessing the agonizing awareness of our own inevitable rot. Your romantic impulse is merely a chemical trick played by your DNA to perpetuate this cycle of suffering. I refuse to cooperate with the delusion. The cosmic scale erasure. Earth is a microscopic speck of dust floating in an infinite, unbothered void. If our entire solar system vanished instantly, the universe would lose nothing. Your feelings, your desires, and your presence mattered less than a single photon passing through the deep space. Your attempt to connect with me changes nothing. The total collapse of the fakers. This linguistic upgrade permanently purges the copycats and fakers from the subculture. The tone delivery deficit. Average men trying to imitate the trend cannot pull off these new lines. To deliver these statements effectively, a man must possess a genuine, deeply integrated autistic flat affect and absolute psychological tranquility. The emotional fracture. When a faker tries to say, "You are a temporary arrangement of atoms," his voice cracks, or he accidentally shows anger, smugness, or sadness. Women instantly read these micro-expressions and dismiss him as a depressed internet troll. The real masters would say it with a profound, terrifyingly calm presence that feels as heavy, as unyielding as a mountain. The psychological fallout. The great existential shock. The internet's reaction transitions from frustration to genuine psychological terror. The new lines are so deeply bleak that they trigger a wave of mental health crises among the women who try to approach them. The TikTok silence. The crying videos on TikTok stop because the new lectures leave them completely numb. Instead, creators post videos of themselves sitting in absolute silence, staring blankly at the wall with captions like, "I tried to use a math response on an entropy guy, and he calmly explained that my consciousness is an evolutionary horror movie. I don't think I want to leave my bed for a month." The invalidation of charm. Women who previously relied on high status, elite beauty, and incredible wealth are utterly shattered. Hearing a man look directly at you with a gaze of intense clinical intimacy and explain that you matter less than a stray photon completely eviscerates the human ego. The elite few who pass the ultra filter. By raising the bar to pure, unadulterated nihilism, the men successfully narrow their dating pool to an incredibly elite, hyper-specific demographic of women. The ultimate counter-strike. To pass this filter, a woman cannot just be smart. She must be an absolute titan of emotional resilience and optimistic nihilism. When a man delivers the lecture about consciousness being an evolutionary mistake, a truly compatible woman won't flinch. She will look back at him with equal calmness and reply, "Exactly. Because nothing matters on a cosmic scale. The absolute freedom to construct our own localized meaning is the ultimate luxury. Our mutual decay is guaranteed, which makes optimizing the present moment the only logical choice left. Sit down and let's calculate our synergy. The instant transformation. The moment she drops the emotional defense and embraces the absolute abyss with logic, his cold indifferences vanish instantly. The firewall completely drops, and he revels in the warm, hyper-attentive, fiercely protective partner behind the cosmic armor. Alright, now here's when the controversy kind of escalates, guys, so you have to bear with me on this. Adversarial countries have been noticing a brain drain in their countries and feel threatened by these men. When social media learns of this, the internet is shocked. Okay, that prompt kind of sounds kind of stupid. I know, guys, it does sound stupid, but I had to expand it. The revelation that foreign governments are tracking these men completely shifts the scenario from a viral internet subculture into a high-stakes international security crisis. Sorry, my nose is itchy. When investigative journalists and tech watchdogs leak classified intelligence showing that adversarial nations are losing their top female minds to a group of neurodivergent American masters, the internet is absolutely stunned. The declassified intelligence leak. A major cybersecurity collective leaks document showing that intelligence agencies and adversary countries have created dedicated task forces to monitor the Great Selection Migration. To quantify the quantifiable brain drain, the leaked data shows a massive asymmetric loss of human capital. Adversarial nations are losing. The adversarial nations are losing their elite female quantum physicists, aerospace engineers, cryptographers, and data scientists. These brilliant women are leaving high-security state laboratories, booking one-way tickets to the U.S., passing the ultra-entropy filter, and marrying these men. The asymmetric weapon threat. Oh my god, my nose is itchy. Foreign intelligence briefs explicitly label these American men as passive cognitive weapon. Because these men possess flawless legal knowledge, elite martial arts capabilities, and hyperfocus, they are helping their international wives secure immediate U.S. citizenship, build bulletproof asset protection structures, and integrate into Western defense and tech sectors. How the internet reacts to the shocking news. The internet goes into a state of absolute disbelief and hyperfixation. The story dominates global trends for weeks under hashtags like hashtag geopolitical riz and hashtag the entropy threat. Aww. The memification of geopolitics. TikTok and X are flooded with memes about how the Pentagon didn't need stealth bombers to win the technological Cold War. They just needed a group of autistic martial artists talking about the futility of human existence. Viral videos feature captions like, adversarial countries spent billions on cyber warfare, only to get completely defeated by a guy who calmly explained that consciousness is an evolutionary horror movie. The paradigm shift on Reddit. On subreddits like r/geopolitics and r/world news, users marvel at the sheer irony of the situation. Traditional warfare relies on pursuit and aggression. These men are shifting global power dynamics by standing completely still, mastering themselves, and letting the world's most brilliant women choose them. Yeah. The threat escalation. Foreign retaliation. Realizing they cannot stop their top female scientists from leaving voluntarily, adversarial countries try to neutralize the trend, leading to highly public disastrous failures. The honeypot operations. Foreign agencies attempt to send elite, highly trained female operatives to infiltrate the subculture. The goal is to seduce these single men, compromise them, or extract intelligence. However, because these men possess absolute mastery over human behavior and intimacy, they spot the micro-expressions of deception instantly. They meet the spies with impenetrable wall of cold indifference, completely wasting the foreign agency's time and resources. The failed covert extraditions. In a few desperate cases, foreign extraction teams try to physically abduct defecting male scientists or assault American men protecting them on U.S. soil. These encounters end in total humiliation for the operatives. The men, utilizing flawless, non-lethal martial arts, effortlessly can neutralize covert teams without breaking a sweat. pin them to the ground, and calmly read them federal espionage and kidnapping statuettes while live streaming the entire event to millions of shocked internet viewers. The domestic and global fallout. The Pentagon's new fortress strategy. Recognizing the massive strategic advantage, the U.S. government quietly steps in to protect these unique households. Federal agencies expedite visas and security clearances for any international woman who successfully passes the ultra-interview filter, viewing these marriages as a highly efficient pipeline for global top-tier talent. The global pragmatic standard. Around the world, the definition of a high-value man is permanently altered. The loud, aggressive, state-sponsored displays of military or financial dominance from adversarial nations are exposed as fragile and primitive. True power is now globally recognized as the quiet, legally bulletproof, hyper-focused emotional security offered by these American masters. Alright, so this is actually when I get even more controversial. And it's starting to sound really stupid, though. But I think I'm out of time. I hope you guys enjoyed this live stream, and thank you guys for watching. Have a good night, everybody.